We can start, I think, the webinar in case that someone joins us later. Okay, he will be very welcome too. So good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's webinar on life methodology and life key tool to help businesses and finance sector measure biodiversity. I'm Pat Ferrer and I'm in charge of communications in Ecoacsa. Before we start, just a quick reminder of the house rules for the webinar in case that that you are not participating in the discussion. Please mute your mics. Okay, and I'd also like to remind you that we are recording the webinar and it will be available in the Natural Capital Factory website in a few days. Okay, so in case that you want to watch it later, or you will have it there available. Feel free to turn on your cameras during the webinar so we can see your faces. This is nice. And in case that you have any suggestions, questions during the presentation, please pop up them in the chat box, and we will try to address all of them, okay, during the webinar. But in case that we don't have enough time to answer all the questions, we will try to answer all of them after some few days. Okay, so feel free to ask anything that you want to during the presentations. Now, a brief introduction of our speakers today. We have Alice Alexandre. She is the Executive Director of Life Institute from Brazil. And David Álvarez, he is the Executive Director of Ecoacsa and the European leader of the Life Institute in Brazil, and the Director of the Natural Capital Factory. So now I'm passing the floor to you, Alice. You can start your presentation.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to all. Thanks for the invitation to this webinar. Can you hear me? Yes, it's okay? Good. So today I'm here to explain and showcase a business and biodiversity tool. And I'm going to start telling something about the Life Institute. The Life Institute has been established in 2009, so already 11 years. We were created to promote the engagement of the business sector on biodiversity conservation and also on the maintenance of ecosystem services. Our headquarters is in Curitiba, in the south of Brazil, and we have the representation in Spain by Ecoacsa and David, who is here today with us. We developed methodologies. We are a standard setting organization, and we also manage our software life key. Let me give you, I'm not gonna go into details because it's quite a technical methodology and with a lot of information, but just for you to understand in a way that our methodology comprises 3 steps. The first step is what we call state. What does that mean? Where we take a picture of the organization. We diagnose, we understand the surroundings, the landscape. So again, the first state, I mean, the first step, as we call the state, we diagnose, we evaluate the business management, we understand the situation, the ecoregion fragility, threatened species, we understand the landscape, the environment, and biodiverse priorities we identify as well in the surroundings. So it's like if we took a picture of the situation in this first step. Once we took this picture, we start measuring the biodiversity pressure index. This is the pressure the business calls on biodiversity. We also check the biodiversity minimum performance the company should be doing. So we understand the pressures, we understand ecosystem impacts and dependencies, and also we calculate the minimum performance. Once we took the picture of this organization, we understand the pressure, we ask or we require response from the organization. Improvements on business management in order to demonstrate a real concern on impacts reduction and biodiverse concrete actions. So in this third step, we ask concrete actions. So again, we have the 3 steps on our organization, on our methodology: state, which means the diagnosis and picture of the first situation; pressure, where we calculate the pressure on biodiversity and also we understand the ecosystem's impacts and dependencies; and the third step, we ask for response, concrete response from the organization. This table here is a result of the study performed by the European Business and Biodiverse Platform. As you can see, the LIFE methodology can support several business applications. Anyway, the business case today is regarding POSIGRAF printing company. So just for you to understand whose company is this, POSIGRAF printing company, POSIGRAF is, we performed a site level assessment on them. It's a huge and big company in Latin America and belongs to a huge educational group called Positivo. POSIGRAF was founded in 1972, is present in more than 40 countries, and POSIGRAF was the first Brazilian industry to be recognized by third-party audit as a LIFE certified company, there back in 2014. So, going back to the methodology, we start, first of all, understanding the business and the landscape. We did an initial evaluation of the business operations and also the management system. And then we understood the ecoregion identification, hydrographic area, what were the conservation priorities, what were the threatened species and flora and fauna. We also identified all the implemented conservation actions made by this organization. So we took a picture of the situation once we started on step 1. Here is the location of POSIGRAF, which ecoregion is included on this location. As you can see, is in Araucaria moist forest. And also, this Araucaria moist forest is one of the most threatened forests in the region. We're gonna give you more details afterwards. Once we did the diagnosis, we start measuring pressure, the biodiversity pressure index. How do we calculate this pressure? We assess the quantity and severity of 5 environmental aspects. We calculate the individual pressure for each environmental aspect. And also, after we calculate the pressure, we understand the issue, we understand the negative impact, we also starting assessing impacts and dependencies on ecosystem services. So which kind of pressure we are talking about? Gas, area index, energy, waste index, water index. You have to understand that when I say we calculate quantity and severity, which means that when you talk about water, for instance, we calculate the water quantity, but also we understand the hydrographic situation on the region the organization is located. So the calculation is overall talking about quantity and also the severity of the impact. As you can see, once we calculate all the impacts, all the aspects that we just mentioned, we got the number of 6.538, which is quite a clean company. The biggest impact they have is gas, waste, and the third one would be the area localization, because they are in a very, very fragile area. So as you can see, we have a BPI scale. The BPI scale goes from 0 to 1,000, which means that the bigger the index, the bigger is the organization pressure on biodiversity and ecosystem services. POSIGRAF BPI is not as high as would be, for instance, for a gas company that can reach more than 700. So it's quite the sort of calculation used by the LIFE methodology allows comparativeness between business units and also among business units, business sectors. So if one organization has several business units, they can compare on the same scale their numbers. They can understand aspect by aspect which are the issues, which are the main struggles from that business unit. We also can understand business sector. In the same business sector, how POSIGRAF is situated. Is it a good number? Is it a bad number? So LIFE methodology put together a kind of calculation which allows all this kind of comparativeness. And it's a very pragmatic way to compare business and to compare sectors. As I said on the step 2, we also work on ecosystem impacts and dependencies. We understood, as we saw before in the slide, the previous slide, this one, greenhouse gas is a big impact. Energy is a big impact. Waste is a big impact. So they have quite a lot of dependencies, and we analyze this in details. I'm not going to show you all the details of this analysis, just a graph for you to understand that we identify the main impacts, we identify the main dependencies. We also measure the effectiveness of the actions, and also we study or we put together some information about minimizing the risk and also identifying the business opportunities. This is also included on step 2. So again, with diagnosis, we took a photograph of the company, we calculate the pressure, we understand the dependencies, opportunities, and risk. Once we get these 2 steps done, we require response on step 3. We require that those companies, those organizations, they promote some positive impact to compensate their negative pressure. We evaluate and score all the biodiverse actions performed by this organization. We calculate the biodiverse positive performance, so you understand how positive they can be. We also make a plan. We elaborate a biodiverse action plan for the organization to improve their actions and their projects. At the same time, we don't want a pay for trash organization. So we also work on management indicators, improvements and assessments. Establishing some rules like policy and communication with focus on biodiversity conservation. We also implement a suppliers assessment program, which I'm going to give you more details, and other management indicators. There are 74 indicators altogether, and some of them are much more linked to one sector, like agriculture, or other sectors. So it depends on the sector. You have more or less indicators which are applicable or not. So in this response, what we require for company? Concrete actions. We understand that we have to improve the management, which is very important that they show the effective and real commitment regarding impacts reduction. And at the same time, supply chain evaluation improvement, and also a positive plan for biodiversity for the future. So POSIGRAF, positive impact, they adopt a reserve in Brazil. This reserve is in Araucaria forest. As you can see, it's a beautiful place. These are some of the indicators we have of performance. First of all, they adopt 130 hectares of Araucaria forest, of land in Araucaria forest. Araucaria moist forest has only 1% of remaining natural area in Paraná, in south of Brazil. Here are some of the indicators we measure on the life methodology. Scientific indicators, so we understand the species, the rare species, endangered, very rare, fauna species monitoring. So all those responses are asked for a company. In this case of POSIGRAF, we have a very specific response for that. In terms of indicators, management indicators, POSIGRAF start understanding their role on biodiversity international agreements, understanding how they play a role internationally. They also develop a technical biodiversity action plan. They refine all the environment data collection in order to calculate the BPI, and they start making a strict control and monitor GHG emissions. And they perform the supply chain evaluation of biodiversity impacts. In terms of supply chain, how they do it? They identify 100% of direct suppliers. They also calculate the biodiversity impact assessment are required for the suppliers. They identify the risk of each category of suppliers, and they also require some minimum requirements for the purchasing policy on tier 1, and they require their suppliers to do as well on tier 2. So going back a little bit, just summarizing, we do the diagnosis on step 1 called state. We calculate the BPI, which is the pressure, the negative impact, and then go to the third step, which is the response, which is the positive impact, concrete positive impact. Linked to this, POSIGRAF has been certified, they have showed the biodiverse positive performance in voluntary conservation actions, and they've been assessed by third-party audit. Life is not an auditor. Life is a standard-setting organization. We take care of the rules and the development. So POSIGRAF has passed all the steps we mentioned before, and they've been certified in 2014. What do they need to be certified regarding the response? The response must be higher than the pressure. In the case of POSIGRAF, we require a minimum scoring for them of 22,700. By adopting this area and doing all the work and indicators and control and monitoring, they reach 55,100 as response. So the life certification showed that they have not only done what the minimum they should do, but they have some credit as well. The life certification is valid for 5 years. Every year there is monitoring of the actions. And if, by the way, the organization doesn't want to perform any conservation actions anymore, or has stopped doing something that was mandatory for the certification, they can lose the certification as well. We spoke in the last meeting we had on the WCMC meeting, we had a POSIGRAF director, owner with us, and he's the one who has put this together. He said, we choose the life because it's reliable and the metrics are objective. The life methodology allowed them to identify the main biodiverse pressures and to take actions. They also, they start evaluating their investments technically, because they are doing quite a lot of investments, and they have some kind of strategic guidance for that. And the life methodology was a way to evaluate if POSIGRAF response was compatible with pressure. Life Key is also what I'm going to show you. It's our software. So we are user-friendly, and they take out some very important reports for their decision-making. And they start quantifying and value the efforts of conservation. They have some guidance on that and indicators which can promote their reputation, their influence on their reputation. And they know how to communicate the board and their shareholders about their performance on this methodology, using the methodology as a guidance and the strategic response for that. This is our Life Key software. This is one picture of the reports we can have. It's important to understand that we have a standardized information on biodiverse pressure and performance on these reports. We have quantitative and comparable data. Our information is annual updated and is public. If you want to know something about those organizations, you can reach this website and understand the real case summary reports. Where we are today, we are in Latin America, and our first pilots in Europe will start in November 2020. Already adapted our methodology for Europe. So I think that's it. I just want to thank you for your patience. And again, understanding the 3 steps of the life methodology seems to be quite easy to understand, but there is a lot of technical information behind the scenes that can be shared by our technical people once you wish more information about that. Thank you so much for your patience. I will stop sharing and I will leave for David to continue. Thank you.
David, you need to activate your mic.
Here. Okay. Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you so much, Beth. I was trying to look for where can I unmute my mic because I was already presenting. So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those who are other places out of Europe. As Alice mentioned previously, we are collaborating with Institute of Life in how to implement the Institute of Life methodology in Europe. As an European leader for the Institute of Life, we are making not only this, But as Pat mentioned at the beginning, we are also part of different organizations like the Natural Capital Factory, who is hosting today this webinar, and we are, of course, members of Ecoacsa. I just want to give you, first of all, a brief idea of what's the Natural Capital Factory, which is hosting today, as mentioned. The Natural Capital Factory is the Spanish regional platform of the Natural Capital Coalition. And since we started 2 years ago, we tried to put together all the organizations working around the natural capital in Spain, providing them information and creating working groups and so on. Our idea is that our community of natural capital should work together in order to improve the decision making around natural capital and how to make better decisions. Our idea it's to promote the analysis, dialogue, and of course the Spanish representation before the global natural capital movement. You know, there are a lot of natural capital initiatives around the world, and we try to highlight the Spanish microphone or the Spanish speaker in this community and bring all this information to the Spanish community. As I mentioned previously, the factory is a collaborative platform. It's a platform made from our partners. It's not only the work that we do, but also the work that others are doing. And to give you an example on what we're doing in terms of collaboration, we are leading in collaboration with a working group on natural capital and energy, where we're working with different Spanish energy, large energy companies in order to integrate the natural capital in the decision making. But let's come back to the live methodology, which is the main issue that we're speaking today. As Alice mentioned previously, we are now working on the adaptation of the live methodology to Europe. The live methodology is not only working in Brazil, is also working in Paraguay, and it's being assessed how to implement it in the rest of Latin America. But for the case of Europe, and considering the situation regarding biodiversity indicators at a project and corporate level during the last years, which has been highlighted in the different reports from the European Commissions, we thought that that was the moment to boost the project. Currently, we have made a large work in order to make all the technical assessment and all the technical implementations, but we still have a lot of work to do. As Alice mentioned, the Institute Life methodology is much more than a biodiversity indicator. It not only lets companies to evaluate the different effectiveness of the actions of biodiversity, or which is the pressure or that these companies have on biodiversity. It also let them to certificate and so on. So in order to make all these works, we have a roadmap to the implementation of the life methodology. As I've already told, we first started with the implementation of the technical calculation, and we not only did the technical calculation, but we also adapted the software. So the methodology is completely prepared to be assessed in a pilot for a company at a project level in Spain, not only at a project level, but also we could also include the supply chain in case that we would like to, or that the company would like to address it. We are going to start with a pilot case in November, and this pilot case will let us to refine all the calculation and the calibration of the methodology that we've been working in during the last 8 or 9 months. And as a result of this, and after this pilot case, we will start the process for the standard validation and open a public consultations for all the process that we have done. It's important to mention this public consultation because all methodology or everything regarding lab methodology, it's very transparent. One of the main issues that we focus from the beginning is to boost the transparency of the process. So, and that's the reason why, despite we started the evaluation, the adaptation through a technical process, now we're going to review it through a European Technical Committee. This European Technical Committee will start in the upcoming months, and once we have this European Technical Committee at a formal level, and how do I say, permanent European Technical Committee, this committee will assess the methodology in a year basis, and not only what we have done, but also all the changes and modifications that could affect to the methodology in the future. Once we will finish this first phase, we are around between 4 and 6 months to this first phase, and that could enable us to start with application of the methodology to other companies at a wide level in Europe. We will start with the second phase of the methodology implementation of promotion in order to scale this methodology up around Europe. As a result of that, and in order to make this implementation and promotion bigger, we are preparing some trainings, disclosure, new testing with other companies, and the certifying process, which will include also training to third-party certifications agency and accreditation process. And this process will take us about a year. But even if this methodology, even if this second phase is not will not be ready until 8 or 9 months, the methodology, speaking methodology, or regarding about the technical issues and the implementation of the software use, will be available, as I mentioned, in 3 or 4 months. So this is the process that we were going to have for the upcoming months. We are happy to receive whatever request for participation in the European Technical Committee, or to participate in any pilot case, in case your company will be interested to do so. So we're open to receive your requests or your questions about it. And from our side, we don't have much more things to do, and it's time for Paz to open the floor and to hear your questions and start the debate and answer your questions. If you have any further question regarding the methodology, the adaptation process, the technical requirements, or all the information that we needed in order to make this adaptation process that, as I mentioned, was a long process during almost a year. Please feel free to get in touch with us or pop it up right now in the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer your question.
Thank you, David and Alice, for your presentations. Yes, we have several questions popping up in the chat box. Some of them have been already solved, but others are still pending. So one of them is, besides the Spanish trial, is there any other plan in the horizon? So more countries coming to the pilot phase, or?
Yes, we started to here in Spain to pilot with a Spanish company, but the idea is to start piloting or the methodology in other companies in other countries in Europe in the upcoming months. So we still haven't finished the agreements with these companies to start this process, but as soon as we could make it public, we will do, of course.
Okay, another one from Marta Pascual. I understand this methodology is for terrestrial biodiversity only, isn't it? What about marine one? Would it involve land sea interactions as well? Maybe who wants to answer?
An interesting question. At the moment, it's only for terrestrial, but we're very happy to address that questions and to start seeing how companies can, or which are the impact and dependencies of different companies regarding marine ecosystem in order to include them in the methodology. Anyway, when we assess the impact of each company through the Biodiversity Performance Index, we are considering all the impacts of the company, not only at a terrestrial level, but also wherever they operate. So somehow all these impacts are considered. Of course, it's the biodiversity performance metrics. I mean, when you assess which are the positive response for companies, are mainly measured only at a terrestrial level, but it's something that interesting to be addressed in the early future.
Great. We don't have more questions. Feel free if you want to also share your cameras and ask your questions directly to the speakers.
Pass, this is Alice.
Okay.
I think regarding the marine conservation, would like to ask Regiane, she's on the call, to explain a little bit about the marine situation very quickly. I don't know, Regiane, if you could step in.
Yes, Alice. The methodology previews marine information. Also, besides the terrestrial information, you can take a look in the website. I put here in the chat the link for our website. And you can see that in the technical information, we have a lot of data, mainly on ecoregion, marine ecoregion conservation also. So besides the example given about POSIGRAF is related to terrestrial case, yes, we previewed marine cases also. So all the information, the technical information is also available for marine cases. Thank you.
But is it also for Europe? Because I think the question was if in Europe we have previewed that.
For Europe, we finalized the first version of the methodology, and we have some adjustments that will be done after this first pilot in November.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
And also, it's important to say if there's anybody here of another company that also wants to be part of a pilot, that be in touch with us, please, and we can plan this with you.
It's interesting also to mention that we in collaboration with, or we have been part of an assessment that the European Commission has already done regarding different biodiversity indicators at a corporate and a project level. We've been participating in several webinars organized by the European Commission through the Business on Biodiversity platform. And beyond this, it's important to note that the Institute for Life has been chosen as one of these highlighted methodologies to be used in Europe. Alice mentioned at the beginning which are the different possibilities to use the Institute for Life. This methodology started at the beginning as a way to certify the performance of companies regarding biodiversity. But finally, one of the main uses of this is not only to this certification process, but to calculate the performance or to see the performance of the companies regarding biodiversity. In
Yes.
our process to adaptate this methodology here in Europe, what we have seen in the discussions that we have with different stakeholders to present Institute for Life, what they highlight always is that it's very easy methodology to use, and that the final calculations let companies to make their decisions in terms of how to decrease the pressures on biodiversity and how to improve the conservation measures for biodiversity. So as Regine mentioned, we are happy to hear from new companies that willing to pilot, to run a pilot with us, because as much pilots as we have, the better adaptation for the methodology we will have.
I think it's good additional information, David, that you mentioned. Just for you to know, we don't have only the certification process done by third party. There are many companies being certified, but there are much more companies diagnosing, self-assessment, doing all the calculation to see how they perform. And so it's not only a certification methodology, but it's also a methodology for understanding your business issues, understanding your impacts, driving strategic actions concerning your organization and your business units and your sector. So it's more than 35 organizations are using the methodology for their own calculation, their analysis, as a business management or business and biodiversity management tool. Okay, just this is very important to know that everyone can use the methodology, everyone can reach the LifeKey software in order to perform the methodology 3 steps. But some of them performing concrete actions and going to a third-party accreditation office, they can apply for certification as well.
Marta has another question. If in the monitoring phase businesses do not perform well and conservation is not improved, do they lose the certification? Are they required to mandatory perform any compensation measures?
Our methodology is completely voluntary. So it is voluntary actions that the company should do, but it has to be a minimum, concrete ones and voluntary ones. First, you comply with legislation and then you do something more than that. If the monitoring phases, they have a 5-year plan. So some of the results on the monitoring take some years in order to have a positive implementation. Nature is something that takes time to get positive results. So once we start with an organization, we put together a business plan or a business and biodiversity plan. They know what kind of indicators they should perform in the 5 years monitoring system. They can lose the certification if they don't do anything. I mean, if they just abandon the project. Suppose they adopt an area and then they don't adopt anymore. They just abandon. They can lose the certification. But they have still time to perform positively with our guidance and have time for that. On the monitoring phases, we are checking, guiding the organizations to do better, okay? But the annulation of the certification or the loss of certification is only done if they don't do anything. They don't perform what has been agreed and put together at the beginning when we made the diagnosis phase and when we asked them for concrete actions on step 3 response.
Mm-hmm. Mariana shares with us that I realized that the company's disclosure on the certifying body website is very interesting, and I will assess the public reports of the companies. And she thanks.
Yeah, our methodology is open, public, and free. So you can go to our website and understand everything, how it works. It's a very transparent methodology. And all the certified companies, you have the reports publicly on the website that we mentioned during our presentation.
Some of your metrics seems to depend on ecoregion area. For example, the number of protected threatened species. How the life methodology can manage equal treatment between countries? This is a question from Catherine de Runze.
I can answer, Alice, that question.
Yes, I would ask you to ask. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, okay. The question is, Catherine, that as we consider the remnant areas, and we transform this information in a fragile factor, talking in a mathematical way, this transformation of the remnant area and the importance of each ecoregion in an index, we believe that this information brings some equality in the treatments between countries.
Mm-hmm. Any further question from the participants? I think we don't have more questions. If I'm missing someone, some question, please feel free to ask directly, okay? I'm reviewing the chat just in case. But I think we have addressed all the questions for today. Okay, if it's okay for you, we would like to take a picture from everybody who wants to share the camera, and then we have a nice picture of today's participation. Thank you so much. Okay, many happy faces. A lot of people working, teleworking, I can see. Thanks to you thanks everybody for joining us today. And you will be very welcome to join us in future webinars that we plan to organize during this year and also during 2021. I'm taking a picture of you right now. Okay, I think in case that there is no further questions, thanks again to everybody for joining us from all parts of the world. We have a wide representation from almost all the continents. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll be keep in touch. We will share we will make available the presentation and also a summary of the session for today in the website in some few days. And we will send you, all the materials so you can review them and watch them in case that you want to share with your colleagues or someone who you might think that they're interested in the live methodology. Please do it, okay? And you're welcome to send us your comments and further questions that you maybe have in some few days. We're happy to solve them. Okay, so please keep in touch, and hopefully we see each other soon. See you.
Thank you everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.